Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. Welcome to r/MaliciousCompliance. Now, I'm sure you all know exactly what this sub is like, but in case you don't, this first post by user/ARSTorok is an absolutely perfect example, so let's get straight into it. So, this is about 5 years ago. I worked as a chef at a bakery. It was my job to make everything but the baked goods. Every morning, the baker and I would walk in about 4 AM and knock out all the food needed for the day. This would leave me ready to go home around 10 AM or so. This put us at the perfect time to deliver online orders. It was common for companies or other entities to place large catering orders with us. The baker and I would split them down the middle and deliver them on our way home. The delivery in question was for Bob, Dick and Harry, attorneys at law. I have never delivered to BD&H before, but they were a regular of sorts. Every financial quarter, they would hold a huge meeting. This meeting would require roughly $700 of bagels and bagel accessories. This spread included 8 dozen bagels, all 10 of our flavors of cream cheese, pastries, brownies, and enough coffee to power a college dorm through finals week. My passenger seat, entire back seat, and entire trunk are filled with food. Now, BD&H is located on the 9th floor of a commercial skyscraper, deep in an industrial complex downtown. Parking was non-existent. There were meters outside the building, but I knew I would need close to 10 trips to deliver all this food. And I didn't have a lot of change on me. Company policy was to just pay whatever fines I needed to park and then turn in my receipts. The money would end up on my next paycheck. So, the building has its own parking garage, so I pull on in. The security guard, let's call him Sam, stops me and says that the parking garage is for employees only. I happily show him my delivery invoice and offer him a bribery bagel. Never leave the store without at least 2. Sam refuses a bagel and says I can park in one of the guest spots on the bottom floor. The fee is $5 for every 30 minutes, minimum $10. I thank him and head to the bottom floor of the garage, so there are a total of 6 guest parking spaces. Just 6. All of them are taken. I head back up to talk to Sam when I see an open parking spot reserved for Bob, Dick and Harry, attorneys at law. There are cars in every spot, with many spots being reserved for employees by name. The last spot is empty and is reserved for guests of BD&H. Perfect. I pull on in, I grab the most important part of the delivery, the coffee, and head to the stairwell. I get into the elevator and hit the button for floor 9. The elevator asks for my employee ID card. Well, crud. So I try the lobby. That works. From there, it's 9 flights of stairs until I'm outside the law firm of Bob, Dick and Harry. After introducing myself, I'm shown to the room where the meeting will take place. A table is set aside for me, I set down the coffee and head for trip number 2. That's when I see Sam talking to the receptionist. He runs over and starts shouting at me. "I'm putting a boot on your frickin' car! I told you to park in guest on the bottom floor!" I don't get a word in before he launches into a speech about security and how I could be hurting his building or people. That's when a very well-dressed man walks over. It so happens to be Bob, the Bob of Bob, Dick and Harry's. Bob asks what the problem is, and soon the two are arguing. OP is delivering food for my meeting. He's allowed to use my parking spots. "Those parking spots belong to the building. You're leasing them like you lease this floor. I'm the one who says who can park here. He isn't an employee, so he isn't parking." Then, I'm making him an employee. "You can't do that." "You know what? You're right. Harry, get over here." Harry walks over with an amused look on his face. Harry here is the head of our HR department. "Harry, hire this boy." Harry pulls out a piece of paper and scribbles. OP is now a member of Bob, Dick and Harry's, and signs it and then asks me to sign as well. I do so. Bob reaches over to the receptionist, who is already grabbing some things. "Here's your employee badge, your parking permit, and your elevator key card. Now, please do the job I've hired you to do and deliver my bagels." Sam looks on in utter fury as I ride the elevator down to my car. 7 sweet elevator rides later, all the food is delivered. Bob and Harry meet me at the table. "OP, you've made great strides in this company and I'm proud of your work, but I feel it's time for us to part ways. Here's your final check." Bob then hands me a crisp $50 bill. And your severance package. Now please be sure to return your badge and card on the way out. Harry hands me a $20 note and sends me on my way. The receptionist is sure to validate the parking ticket that Sam gave me, and I head on out. On the way out, Sam grins at me and asks for my tickets. I place it in the machine in his station. It sees the validation I got and lets me out for free. Sam glares at me as I drive off into the late morning sun. Oh my god, that has to be one of the funniest stories I've read in a while. Hired for a day as a lawyer doesn't get better than that. Nice work, OP. And here's our next post by user/heterochromia_cat. I've been living in Japan for a little over 2 years with my husband. He was born here and we decided to move to his hometown. It's a small city, but there's enough to do without getting bored. I describe us as an Asian man, white female couple, AMFW. It's not so common in Western countries, and it can feel like we're some rare shiny Pokemon as an AMWF couple in rural Japan. Lots of staring, occasional secret picture, or even small chats if an old lady's brave enough to approach us. It can feel uncomfortable eating at a restaurant because kids will turn around in their seat and stare at us the whole time with an open fish mouth. Coincidentally, there's a small US military base located in this city. The closer you are downtown, the more American families you see. I'm constantly mistaken for being military by Americans and Japanese, which is understandable. Besides myself, I only know 5 other interracial marriages here. It's always locals who ask about my American husband when I'm out alone, which I respond in Japanese, Watashi no oto wa Nihonjin desu, koko ni sunde imasu. My husband is Japanese and I live here. Pardon my Japanese, that was truly awful. Or something along those lines. Americans never ask about my marriage as they assume my spouse is American. When we're together in public, we do abnormal couple behavior such as holding hands. Couples here rarely hold hands in public, let alone say I love you. We don't go downtown too often since it's all pay to park and it's a nightmare to find a place. It was a beautiful warm day for the first time in months, but we decided to battle for a spot and walk around the shops. The crowd was heavy since the weather was great and winter was ending. The season for new American families to move here just finished, so I'm sure this was many people's first time to leisurely walk and shop outside. We find a parking spot and made our way to the outside shops. Of course, we're holding hands and casually talking and laughing. Wow, I hear from this American woman about 10 feet behind us. You should know that a Japanese stereotype against Americans is that we are rude and obnoxiously loud. And this wow was loud enough for me to turn my head around at the noise. She was with 2 other mums who had like 3 kids each. They were staring at me, but perhaps we just accidentally had eye contact at the right time. Seriously, another little homewrecker is doing this in public? Chill, woman, you're so loud even I can hear you. We find a table nearby at the Starbucks outside. We're enjoying our drinks when this same group of women approached us with their strollers in tow. They definitely had some sort of purpose with something to say to us. Let's call her Honor, woman in Japanese. Excuse me, but you need to keep whatever you're doing in your messed up home. Doing that in public, in front of families to see, is disgusting and immoral. My kids don't need to see such a bad display of marriage. I'm so confused, as was my husband who can speak English. Who knew drinking coffee outside was a crime against humanity in marriage? I'm sorry, what did we do? You know exactly what you're doing. She points at my wedding ring. No, I don't. Good lord, does your husband know about this? Is he on a ship right now? That's so like a dependopotamus. Her friends laugh. In case you don't speak military, a dependopotamus is slang for a military wife who stays at home all day, doesn't clean, uses their spouse as an ATM, and looks like Jabba the Hutt. It dawns on me. She thinks I'm a military spouse and I'm cheating on my American husband. I start laughing because she's suggesting I'm cheating on my husband with my husband. This is my spouse. I'm actually not part of a military community and have a Japanese visa. Honor looks my significant other up and down. The 2 women behind her apologize, but the Honor didn't believe me. No one would voluntarily want to live in this little town. Nice lie, but you're not representing the military community. You make all of us wives look like tramps. Who's your husband and what's his rank? Also, I need your dependent ID. My husband is a high rank, so he'll make sure your husband is aware of your infidelity. She pulls out her phone to probably type my response. I'm offended, since this is actually a nice place to live and very open to foreigners. Look, my husband's name is Ray, and he's sitting right here. I'm not going to show you my military ID since I don't have one. And you're not the police. As proof, you can obviously see our wedding bands match, and here's a picture. I show her my phone screen, which is us in traditional Japanese clothes on our wedding day. Her eyes became huge at the picture. Her two friends and their spawn have already started walking away. Why are you in a relationship with him? You should be in a normal relationship and start having a family with American kids. She says some other statements which I consider racist against the Asian race. It's so ironic because we're in Japan, and she's fussing about me being married to a Japanese man. My husband has been quiet throughout the whole exchange and says to me we should go. I agree and stood up. Stop. The things you're saying are extremely offensive. I was part of a military community myself some years ago, and what you're doing is against spousal conduct. She smirked. Go ahead and tell people what I did then. My high-ranking husband is an E7, and everything will be swept under the rug no matter what happens. You can't touch me. So that's what I did. Note, this is a small military community. Someone does something minor, and it's talked about between wives like chickens. Later that day, I run into my friend who works on the base, and she's well known in the community for being one of the main event coordinators. I don't miss this chance to comply with Honor's demand and explain to my friend about the exchange and how it made my husband extremely uncomfortable with her remarks. She asked me if this person looked like so-and-so, which I said yes to. Her friend rolls her eyes. She just arrived a couple of months ago and is already causing problems with rumors and drama. Looks like we have a racist too. I'll make sure what she said is passed on. It's been half a year, and I haven't heard anything about Honor since I distanced myself from making military friends here. I've only been in my new city for a little over 2 years and experienced more drama from the military families than I have in my whole high school career. That is, until now. Last week, I ran into my friend who's getting ready to leave back to the United States. We had a little discussion about her moving and my family planning and dropped a bombshell. Do you remember Honor, who accused you of cheating on your non-existent military spouse and called your husband a racist name? Of course, I haven't heard anything from her since. Well, I mentioned we were already having problems with her not long after she got here. I told my boss that there's a person who was bothering and threatening civilians and asking for their IDs, which isn't allowed for someone with her status. My boss was extremely interested after I mentioned her name, because Honor was scheduled for an interview in my department. I suggested we look at her social media accounts from her past behaviour, because we don't tolerate racism. It was easy to find her Twitter and Facebook, particularly Facebook since we have many mutual friends. Her SNS was shocking. While she set her Facebook to private, her Twitter was littered with malicious tweets and retweets. This included racism slang for many nationalities, colourful language, and using her husband's military rank to bully others. She made it very clear that she wants to see her current city burn to the ground, and why would anyone want to learn Japanese since it sounds terrible? We printed some of the more extreme things she posted and still invited her to the interview. Oh, and did I mention my boss is Japanese? So she comes into the interview, which I was part of. I asked 3 good things about her, to which she said, dependent, get things done, and friendly. My boss just looked at her for a second before he pulled out her tweets and asked her to explain how she can be friendly and serve the local community if she hates it so much. Honor was floored and said someone hacked into her account, despite there being at least 3 years of slanderous tweets. We thanked her for coming and said we can't accept an employee with this sort of conduct. As far as I know, she's still not working because some spouses found her Twitter not long after the interview, and it was shared in all departments. No one will touch her applications now. Me, so all of this was discovered because I told you about her accusations? My friend. Yes. Oh, and she's kind of an outcast socially right now because she cheated on her husband a couple of months ago. There you have it, folks. Because one person couldn't mind their own business, they lost a potential job and had their social media exposed. Super ironic since she became the dependopotamus and adulterer. the same thing she was accusing me of. Nice, I like this story. A good bit of pro-revenge mixed into the story as well. Though imagine the amount of bravado you need to have to walk up to someone and accusing them of cheating on their husband. Like, literally no context. That is a very bold statement to make. And I think this post will be the last one for today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure to subscribe to the channel for Reddit videos 3 times every single week. But with that said, that is it from me. I hope you all enjoyed, and all I want to do is see you all here next time. See you later, guys.